Okay. Hello, everyone. This video is going to be a supportive video for setting up your Eclair Lightning Wallet node. I'm going to talk about port forwarding in this video because a lot of people are confused about it. This tutorial, of course, can help you forward any port for any program. But the port that we're going to forward today is so that Eclair can communicate with the Lightning Network and won't stop your payments. Because many of you will find that once you have Eclair up and running, it'll show that it's active. But as soon as you try to send a payment, the payments will begin to fail. It's typically a sign of closed ports or some other issue, probably closed ports. Okay, to give you a basic understanding before we get into what we're doing, the idea of opening a port is giving a program a tunnel and a way to connect with the servers that it needs to communicate with for whatever reason or another. I'm not very technical. And Windows and your routers are designed to protect from these type of openings. So if you have a program that's being blocked, you're going to need to forward a port. Now, there are two places that firewalls can be put up. On your PC, that's the first firewall. If you have a program running on your PC, the first firewall is going to hit is a Windows firewall to stop that port from communicating. And if that port is open, then it's going to go through and try to pass through your router, which also has firewalls. In some cases, both firewalls are up. You have to open ports to both. In some cases, just one of the two is up. Like what I've noticed with Eclair is typically it's the router ports that need to be open. So I'm going to do that first. Sorry, just woke up. And then I'll show you how to quickly and easily open up the ports on your Windows using simple port forwarding, because going through Windows firewall can be a little confusing for a lot of people. So I just picked up this app here, simple port forwarding, and it makes it really easy. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we want to find the IP address of your PC. You're going to need to log into your not the IP address of your PC. I'm sorry, the IP address of your router of your PC on your router. Sorry about that. Okay, so basically, what you have to do when you want to open up a port to a router, you have to create a static IP address for the particular computer that you want to open up that port for, so that every time the router resets, it doesn't assign a new IP address to that particular computer. For those of you who don't know how routers work, whenever you hook up a PC or machine to a router, it assigns a dynamic IP address. Meaning if you have 5 different computers hooked up to one router, each of those computers are going to have an IP address on the router, so the router knows the location of that computer. Those addresses are dynamic, so if that router gets reset, it may change the IP address of each of those computers. In order for a port to be open and completely open 24/7, which is what you need for Eclair, you have to make the IP address for the computer in question that you want routed static. So the port that we need to open for Eclair is 9735. What we're going to have to do is we have to go in and make the IP address for this computer a static one so that it doesn't change even upon reset. Once we've made the IP address for this particular computer static, then we'll go into port forwarding and forward the port for this computer. So just to be clear, you have to make that IP address static, which is basically make it so that it can't change for the layman. And then you have to, once you've made that IP address stuck to that one computer and it cannot change, then you go in and you forward the port. That's all it is to forwarding a port on the router. I think the hardest part for most people is they've never logged into their router from a browser. And that's what I've done here. If you look up here from my HTTP address I use this basic standard Motorola Surfboard old school modem router combination, so it has a router built in. So I can just log in here, go to your manufacturer's website, and they'll give you the web address of your router. They'll also give you the username and password. Typically, the username is admin, and the password is either blank or just password. But it depends on the manufacturer, so just do a simple search for it and you can find that simple information. All right, now that we've understood what opening a port through a router is, let's actually go through it so you can understand. Every router is going to be different. For me, it took me about 2 or 3 hours to figure out how to make a static IP. In my particular situation, and in a lot of people's particular situations, you need to open a port for IPv4 client. There's only two kind, IPv4 and IPv6. I won't get into that now. It's highly technical. Don't worry about that. Just know that you need to open up an IPv4. To make the static address, what I had to do was go to basic and go to DHCP. I've seen this option on a lot of other routers. I don't even know what DHCP stands for, but they give a short description of it here, and I'll just read through it. And this is basically what I was describing before. Every device on the network, meaning connected to the router, needs to have an IP address that is unique to the network, to that router. You can manually assign these IP addresses, but as devices move from one network to another, you will need to change the address to one on that network. That's the reason why they make them dynamic, so that the computers can move around. The DHCP server loans IP addresses to devices on the network. This allows the device to get proper IP address for the network each time it connects, so you will not need to assign an IP address manually. When the device leaves the network, the DHCP server can then loan the address to another device. You don't want this. It means it reuses these IP addresses and may use it for one machine one time and another machine another. What we want to do is we want to reserve an IP address, basically, for this particular computer. It's called the Dominion. The IP address is the 192.168.0.0. It says .010, but that's just for denomination. The actual IP address is just .10. So if we were to want to reserve this IP address here, we just type in its corresponding hold on. I forgot how I did this. Let me delete this and go back through it. Okay. All right. Well, let's go back. I need to find out. For the average person, they're not going to know what their IP address. Let's see. Where did I find this to let me know all the computers connected? Give me just a second. This is the same type of trouble you guys are going to have to go through to try to figure out. Maybe it's here in connection. Because I remember one of these screens showed me exactly it's showing me the IPv6 clients, but not the IPv4 addresses. That's interesting. Configuration? No. Diagnostics? No. Well, isn't this just to find how do you do? IP filtering. Nope. MAC filtering. Nope. Some routers make this easy to find. Others do not. Okay, that's already my port forwarding that I've already done. DMC. Security, maybe? No. Diagnostics. No. Event log. That does not give IPv4 addresses. This is really becoming irritating now. Okay, I'm gonna pause this recording and try to figure out exactly where I found this. Give me a second, guys. Oh wait, no, I'm not gonna pause this recording because it takes a lot to paste these things together, and this was just supposed to be an example. All right, well, you know what? I'm just gonna skip over that point because I already know what the IP address is. Yeah, but I would need a list of currently operating. MAC address. I just saw that. B3. See, in a lot of cases, you have to go through and I'm trying to match my machine to its MAC address. I know I have two other machines matched here, so it's 00E0BC83. So I can go back here to the IPv6 clients and see that I have BC0000E0, and whatever one doesn't match, that's the IP address for the computer that I'm now using, the MAC address for the PC that I'm now using. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna type that in. You're gonna have to figure out how to get your. I forgot how I did it. I did it a couple of days ago, and I didn't remember exactly where my list of connected devices were. So it is what it is. So you just once you figure out what the IP address is of that particular machine that you want to open the port on, keep in mind when you open this port, you can only port forward to a single IP address. So in other words, a single machine on the computer. So if you wanted to have two different computers running two different instances of Eclair running through the same router, you're going to have to change the port that Eclair looks through on the second instance and the third instance and so on and so forth. So once we reserve this IP address here, it should add it to the list. And you can see here now that it's reserved. Now that we have set it up as a static client, what we're going to do here's another way to find out your IP address for this machine. Use simple port forwarding. That's how I figured it out. I went into simple port forwarding, and if you go to here, right here where it says router IP, if you press that, not only does it give you your gateway IP, so you know what website to log on to, if you have the appropriate router selected. I don't have the appropriate router selected. It's actually, if you look here, the router IP is from a second router that I was toying with, but the router IP that I'm looking at here, which is 0.1, is the actual router, which is my Motorola surfboard. So really what I should have done is input the actual model of my Motorola surfboard, and then it would have showed me the proper IP. I select here to open up this window to get information about the IP address of this computer on that router. Just so we're clear. Don't want to confuse up IPs here. The gateway IP is just the address of the router itself so that your browser knows how to access the router. The IP of the computer is the IP that the router has assigned to this particular computer, so it says this computer is at that address and this is how I communicate with that computer because this is where it's at. Just want to be clear for a lot of people who get confused, because I know this can be quite a bit confusing. But this is a great way to find your IP of your computer, and also stepping out one level, the IP of your overall router on the network. So going back to what we were just doing, let's finish up forwarding this port. Now for mine, it has a simple, straightforward port forwarding setup. These are my existing forwarded ports. Actually, I don't even need this one because I set up my second. Yes, I don't even need this one. All right, this is my port that is forwarded to my main Eclair operational Lightning Network node. We can double check that here. Well, no, I don't want to show you my amounts in my channels. That's my business. All right. Now, it's going to ask you in some cases to create an IPv4 and IPv6. You always want to create an IPv4 because you can work with simple IP addresses. Now, this is my existing one. I'm just going to show you what a new one looks like from scratch. All right. The external IP address I found is unimportant, but you do want to type in your ports. So in this case, we would type in 9735. And this is the range of ports. Since we're only opening one port, we're just going to type it in both boxes. So if you leave one open, it'll open up the entire range of those ports. You don't want to do that because it leaves your computer open to the rest of the world. Then we're going to type in the IP address of the machine that we just set up the static IP for. Open up the same ports. Then we're going to give it a description, which I'm going to use as the same so you can see exactly what I did. The protocol, you want to make sure that both TCP and UDP are selected here. Sometimes you have to, on certain routers, you have to do one for TCP. You have to do the exact same thing for UDP. We're going to enable it. And then in this case, we would press apply. But since I already have the forwarded port there, then that's not necessary. So press apply, and then it should show up here as a forwarded port. Now let's check to see if this port is open. What we're going to do is we're going to go to uget signal. We're going to go to the forwarding tester. It should already show us our IP. Type in the port we want to see if forwarded. And of course, because I've already done this work, my port here, 9735, is open on that particular IP address, which is this IP address is the main IP address from Comcast for our location. So to be clear, you have a main IP address for your connection to your internet service. You also have an IP address of the router just so that you can communicate with the router and change settings on your browser. And each computer connected to the router is assigned IP address location from the router itself. So those are three different uses of IP address at three different levels. A lot of people don't understand that and it gets confusing. And I just wanted to make that point so you could go, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's all about addressing at different levels of protocol. Okay, so now that we see that the port is open, we are good to go. But let's say, for instance, your port wasn't open. This is the point at which we go to simple port forwarding. Okay, to make this really, really easy, as you can see, I already have a port set up here for mine, but I'm going to go in and we're going to add in some new entries. Go to this little plus sign here where it says ports to be opened. And it's going to give you some sample databases. We're going to do custom. You got to give it a name. Name it anything. We're going to open up both TCP and UDP. This is for opening the port. I didn't make this point. This is if you need to open your Windows firewall port on your computer. If that wall, that's the first wall. If that wall is closed, you're not going to be able to communicate out, even if you've already opened up the router. Sometimes you don't have to open up the router. You're connected to a modem without a router, and you just have to open up the port on Windows Firewall. Sometimes you don't have to open up either. This is if you've opened up the ports on your router and you need to go and open up on the computer. We're going to open the starting port, of course, is 9735, and you can make a range of ports. You can make the next 1,000 ports open. But for this example, we're just going to open up that single port. It's going to give you the IP addresses of the computers connected to the network. Of course, this is the one that's connected to this network. We're going to select it. And the great thing is it also gives you the IP address of other machines if you have the right router selected. Because I believe this is actually the IP address of my second router, but that's beside the point. And then you press add. Now, of course, I've already added here. If you can see, I've already added that. Once you add that, whatever you named it will show up here. Simply, all you have to do here is go to step number 6, add ports to Windows Firewall. Well, yeah, it's a bad program, so just press do it now. 2 ports have been added to Windows Firewall. After doing this, you should have connection to Eclair. Both ports on your Windows Firewall and your router should be open, and you should be good to go. Please thumbs up and share this video because it's the only way that it gets seen by enough people so that everyone can join the network. If you have any questions, please post them in the comment section and I'll try to respond to them as quickly as possible. This has been a tutorial on opening ports specifically for your Eclair Lightning Network node, but can be used to open up ports for anything. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to thumbs up and share, and talk to you later.